Most people let self-doubt or the fear of failure run their lives without even realizing it. And to be completely honest, that used to be me. It cost me opportunities, it held me back, and it made me feel like an outsider in my own journey. But the moment I decided to stop running from it, everything changed. And if you've ever felt that fear of failure or that self-doubt hold you back from taking action towards something that you want to do, this video is for you. The fear of failure is subtle until it runs your life. Growing up, I moved around quite a bit. I can't even remember how many houses I lived in before I was 18. But it was quite a bit. And although I played sports my entire life, it got to the point where as I continued to get more competitive in sports, I had a lot of self-conscious feelings around it. I had a lot of doubt, and I got to the point where I stopped playing to win and I started playing not to lose, because I was so worried about protecting my precious ego and so worried about what others would think about me if I failed. By the time I got to my third high school, I let that fear win. Up to that point, basketball was a huge part of my life. I grew up playing it, played on a team everywhere I went. But my senior year, I decided that I wasn't even going to try out. And to be completely honest, the reason I didn't try out wasn't because I didn't love basketball, is because I was so worried about this fresh slate in this new school and all of these people seeing me as somebody that tried and failed. And man, this decision ate at me that entire year. I thought about it every day. I tried to drown it out. I tried to compartmentalize it. I tried to convince myself that it doesn't matter. I'm joining the military, right? It's just sports. But at the end of the day, it still ate at me. And it got to the point where one day throughout that season, my brother, who is 4 months older than me, he's my stepbrother, convinced me to go to a game. And I distinctly remember standing in the crowd during this game, and everyone was around me screaming and cheering, and I was standing there with a fake smile and a pit in my gut, knowing that I'm not where I belong. And while it might seem insignificant, after all, it's just high school sports, in that moment, I decided and I vowed to never let the fear of failure or that self-doubt hold me back from taking action towards something ever again. I decided that I would rather be known as somebody that tried and failed than never tried in the first place. Fast forward a few years, I was in the Army. At this time, I was in the 160th, serving in a maintenance and aviation capacity, and I found myself in Iraq. And we were supporting a lot of special forces operations at the time. And I remember standing in the Tactical Operations Center, and watching these special forces teams conduct these operations through the Predator feed. And I had this same feeling. Although I never let anything hold me back up to this point, I had this feeling of being on the outside looking in. And I had this same feeling of self-doubt, and what would my peers think about me if I tried and failed and things like that. And at that moment, I decided it was kind of my opportunity to prove to myself that I'm not going to let this self-doubt or this fear of failure run my life, and I can overcome it. So as soon as I got back from that deployment, I PCS'd, or I moved out to Fort Campbell, Kentucky, trained up, and I went to selection. And to be completely honest, man, throughout my entire, selection prep, going to selection, even arriving at selection and seeing all the other guys, I had that same self-doubt that I felt as that 18-year-old kid. I had that same fear of failure, but this time I was not going to let it hold me back or let it control my actions that I was going to take. So here's what I wish somebody would have told me years ago. Self-doubt never goes away. Fear of failure never fully disappears, but if you know how to handle them, they become your greatest assets. Most people feel fear in this context and think it's a warning sign to stop. But what if I told you that fear only shows up when you're about to do something important? I promise you, this fear and this self-doubt is not a stop sign. It's a go sign or a pay attention sign, something that you can lean into. And quite honestly, it's the tangible feeling of growth. So whenever you feel that pit in your stomach, ask yourself this: is this fear because I'm about to make a mistake, or is this because I'm stepping into something bigger than me? If the answer is the second one, don't pull back, lean into it. Point number 2, train yourself to chase discomfort. Any of these mindset things that we do, self-discipline, overcoming fear, failure, these are just a muscle that we can train. And the way in which we train it is by exposing ourselves to it and overcoming it on a consistent basis. So if you want to become mentally tough or more resilient, you have to expose yourself to situations that make you feel uncomfortable. So my challenge to you would be to pick one thing that you can do on a regular basis that pushes you outside your comfort zone. It does not have to be big at first. If you are a person that hesitates in talking to new people, or you're socially awkward or not a social butterfly, this could be as simple as, striking up a conversation when you go grab your coffee from the Starbucks or whatever it is. Put yourself out there and overcome the fears that you feel on a consistent basis and you know are holding you back from what you're truly capable of. So every time you feel that resistance, that is your cue, and you have two options. One, you can overcome it and flex that muscle and become stronger and more capable to overcome those fears and self-doubt and do bigger and better things, or you can succumb to it and stay exactly where you're at, always having this gap and this frustration because you are not who or where you know you should be. And number three, make failure a requirement, not an option. Let me ask you this. Hypothetically speaking, if I told you that no one, not a single soul, would ever find out if you failed what you want to pursue or the goal that you want to go out and to achieve, would you still have that hesitation in going out and doing it? Or would you feel a sense of relief and motivation that you can go and overcome it, or at least put yourself out there? If the answer is the latter one, then that fear of failure and that self-doubt is not really a self-doubt in your capabilities. It's a fear of what others would think about you if you failed. And to be completely honest, that is classic spotlight effect. I promise people are more worried about what others think of them than concerning themselves with what you're doing. And as a person that has gone out and failed something, I failed EOD school, I realized that it's not that big of a deal. And all of these conversations and what we build up into our mind, think about it being much worse. In my experience, my stepdad was a former Green Beret, and I was joining the military. I was highly motivated. I was going to go be an EOD tech and then later on go to Special Forces. And right away, I failed EOD school. And I dreaded having this conversation with my stepdad because he's somebody that accomplished so much. And the first thing I do is go out and fail. But when I had it, I realized it's not that big of a deal. He got over it very quickly. He told me to pick myself up and control what I can and put myself back out there and go try again towards something else. And that's exactly what I did. And guess what? It turned out, and it can turn out for you as well. So don't look at failure as kind of the end of the road. Look at it as a necessity and a requirement to get exactly where you want to be. The more you see failure as just another rep, the less it controls you. So I guarantee if your goal is big, like it should be, and you're chasing the thing that authentically resonates with you, you are going to feel these feelings of self-doubt or fear of failure or fear of what others will think of you if you fail. That's not a sign to back down. That's the price of growth. Look, you are never going to wake up one day and be fearless. I thought I would, right? But it's not the reality. And the people you look up to are not special. They're just the ones that pushed past that fear and put themselves out there despite all of those feelings of self-doubt that came along with it. And that's something that you can do right now. If you got value from this video, drop a like, hit that subscribe button. Otherwise, I appreciate you guys watching. Go get after it, and I will talk to you very soon.